Anton, tell us about paying off debts. To whom do we owe? How do we do it?
Oh, it's a topic like that. The topic is, in fact, impossibly deep. We owe everyone. Just by the fact of being born, you immediately fall into a debt pit, just a hole.
Is it like that for everyone?
Absolutely everyone.
Even you?
Of course. Am I some kind of special? Just a person like everyone else. I just started twitching ahead of time. Not at 50 plus years, but at 12, I got a little bit of a push and I scratched in a different direction. That's the whole difference. Debts start with what you owe to your parents who provided you with a physical body. They gave it to you essentially for nothing, as a gift, to some extent, and to some extent in the hope that you would be of some use. That is, they had certain plans for you, they had certain ideas, and they took actions, leading to the creation of a physical body. Yes, they didn't create your consciousness. They didn't initially form you as a particle. As an initial particle, you came and took it. Accordingly, when you go to a store and buy a car that you drive, you pay for it because you need to compensate the labor of the workers, starting from those who extracted the metal. When you receive your physical body, for some reason, there's suddenly this feeling that it's a given, it's my property, and everyone else can just go away. No, that's not true. You owe your parents for providing you with a body. Secondly, what you owe the place where you developed, where you were formed. Why? Because you consumed that place. Consumed it totally, uncompromisingly. A person consumes tens, sometimes hundreds, of tons of living organisms throughout their life. And considering that a person's weight doesn't fundamentally change much, right? Meaning we don't measure our weight in tons, let's just translate this into waste, thus creating a large amount of debt.
And can we include overeating here? And write off one debt with it?
How would that help?
The rest will remain.
Of course, of course. Moving on. I'm focusing on the material aspect for now. We're not even delving into energy yet. So the space you've consumed throughout your life has created a debt for you. You might ask, well, how could it be repaid? I know people who plant things. They plant much more than they consume. But for now, let's not rush. No need to draw conclusions yet. Moving on. One way or another, I'm surrounded by people who lived through the restructuring. One way or another, people who went through the 90s and the 2000s. What kind of time was that? It was a time when we stole like there was no tomorrow. We stole everything in sight, anything that wasn't nailed down. And even if someone now says, no, I didn't take anything from work, I would say, then look at your laptop, your computer disks, or your video cassettes. Most likely they are all pirated copies. So you used pirated products, you downloaded music from the internet, you downloaded a cracked version of Windows. Yes, I'm sure that most people still have a cracked version of Windows on their system. There you go. So we continue to create these debts for ourselves.
Can we inherit debts from our past generations, from our ancestral system? Is it somehow passed on to us?
Yes, there are ancestral, genetic, ancestral, karmic, so to speak, formations. But you signed up for them yourself.
So, from the very beginning.
That is, when a fragment of consciousness descends into the material world, it fully understands which family it is entering and what kind of legacy that family carries.
Does it choose by itself?
Of course. Well, in most cases. Yes, there are exceptions to the rules. We're right on the edge. Of perception, there is a rare choice of the point, of manifestation in space, almost said rebirth. Oh my. Oops.
Okay, good. What other reasons?
Well, that is, a person steals, a person downloads pirated copies, a person allows themselves to take what belongs to others. This also creates debts. Well, the next point, When we start complaining, when we start whining, when we start demanding love, we create debts because love cannot be demanded. It is not implied that you work in such a mode. It is implied that love flows from you, not that you absorb it into yourself. Well, this also creates debts. That is, those people who fall under such influence and compensate you for it, meaning they agree to share with you, you become indebted again. Well, and I can continue telling these stories for a long time, and it will create the impression that, well, you might as well just lie down and die.
What should be done in this case? There are debts. How? Just continue living and that's it?
There is an opportunity to repay debts, and the first thing to do is to allow the realization of this opportunity in your life. Say, okay, enough of parasitizing, it's time to give back. And look for ways you can do this on all levels. You can do this on a material level. It's an art. It doesn't mean that you just throw a wad of cash at someone and it will be considered repayment. No, that might be counted as corrupting another person. Exactly. That is to say, there are nuances. It's a long topic. But there is an opportunity to repay debts on a material level, mainly when someone approaches you. That is, when someone comes to you. A person says, listen, could you help me out?
Help, you just physically do something.
And if you start to overthink, complicate, or judge, you're engaging in nonsense.
Plus, there will be one more additional debt.
Well, plus one more karmic knot, so to speak. If you say, I have the opportunity, I just give you help, and that's it. We never bring up this topic again. That's something, that's fine.
On the level of energy too, right, you say?
Here, you also need to understand that if you earned 100 rubles, right, and someone comes to you and says, listen, lend me 200, and you run to lend them 200, well, you're a bit out of your mind. You shouldn't do that. If you earned 100 rubles and someone comes to you and says, listen, I'm in a real bind, lend me a ruble. You can tell them, take this ruble, no need to return it, let it be. Count it towards my debts.
And on the level of energy, how can we?
Exactly. So what happens on the level of energy? Why don't we collapse under the weight of our debts? Why don't creditors tear us apart? Because a person can give back on the level of energy, of reality. Not to me, not to you, not to the neighbor, but to reality, to the universe. And this giving is the energy that comes out of your energy centers. It doesn't really belong to you. It's not about, oh, I'm giving from myself. It was never yours to begin with. You are a conduit. And when you give the energy from your energy centers, you burn, you flow, and burn more intensely than the crowd, more intensely than people, I don't know, within a radius of 10 kilometers around you. That's when reality sees that you are a worthy person, someone who needs to be protected, cherished, and watched over, and you start to gradually accumulate points for balance and then eventually move into the positive. But you need to let the centers flow. You need to know how to do it. You must not hinder this energy from flowing. So what happens then? Did something click there? Like a drill turned on? I just froze. I am not worried about it at all. But I could have reacted differently. I could have tensed up, gotten stressed, and blocked my energy.
Yes, we are all in your field here. We are not worried about it either.
That's great.
About it. Here they are writing about Anton's image as fire. Anton, you look great, calm, classic. So, your image has been appreciated.
In general, burning flowing through energy centers allows for quite effective compensation of these debts. But it needs to be done. It needs to be done more effectively than people within the next 10 kilometers.
If you are always accompanied by glowing spheres on your right side, which I see with peripheral vision, is that not organic? And why do they mostly always rise from bottom to top on the right side? They are visible with closed eyes.
No, these are just effects and nothing more. These are exactly the effects I was talking about. When a person begins to interact with their energy, when they start to develop themselves, when they work towards manifesting this potential embedded within us, initially they see absolutely some fragments, effects, not forming a picture of the world, but rather imagining a picture of the world. Just recently, a very amusing incident happened. When my ashan continues to provide practices. Upon practices, one of the practitioners began to describe her experience to him. He listened to her, and the description was such that in the area of my navel, something manifested there. It deepened and reached the adhikal. I connected my navel with the adhikal. The person definitely perceived something. The person definitely had these processes, but the words that this practitioner chose led to such a response from Ashan that if what you just described is so, then I am ready to crawl like a worm before you and spend the rest of my life simply honoring you as a person who connected with the adhikal. Tum. So, we are very inclined to embellish what we do not understand at all, in which we are not knowledgeable. And such a path, unfortunately, leads to madness. I generally recommend that people do not stand still. Do not be satisfied with the results of practices. Yes, you saw something, felt something. Yes, it happened 2 or 3 times. If it hasn't changed, if it hasn't become more extensive and expansive, it all shouldn't be taken into account. All this interferes with our psyche. Our psyche can react to this very strangely. Therefore, do not be satisfied with the result of practices. Yes, some spheres rise from the right, from bottom to top. So what? Well, they rise once, they rise twice. Well, they rise 3 times. What's next? And then you need to move in such a way as to see more. Look, why aren't they on the left? And what is on the left? And what is in front of me? What is behind me? Get a new portion of effects. Say I don't understand. I want even more. I want to see all this on a larger scale and gradually expand the spectrum of my perception. And at some point, you just understand that these were just some fleeting effects that didn't stop you as a practice. They couldn't stop you. And now, when these effects have ended and your consciousness has the ability to perceive the world directly, you can't find those reflections there. But you understand that yes, for example, when a channel opens, this channel passes through the optic nerve, some flashes might occur. So what? It's just an effect. Yes, when the channels on the head open along the spine, they open, they start actively cleansing you. You might hear a buzzing in your ears, and then it disappears because your body doesn't understand how to render it for you, how to perceive it, and it renders it as if it's a powerful buzz, even though there's no buzz at all. Therefore, the described process has nothing to do with inorganic beings. This process is related to the gradual liberation of consciousness from the senses. And when consciousness is freed from the senses, there appear
various visualizations.
Various visual effects, among others.
What are dolmens? Do they enhance practice? And is it worth meditating near them?
I have been to the dolmens located in the Gelendjiken area. We visited a couple of dolmens in the Krasnaya Polyana area. As for what they truly are, I don't know for certain. But some dolmens, mostly the ruined ones, are situated on places of power. Some dolmens were just like patches in space. And when we inquired, we found out that these dolmens had been relocated. That is, they were simply found somewhere and reassembled on a tourist trail. Naturally, these dolmens have already lost their meaning, but there were dolmens that were located precisely in places of power. It's really cool to chant mantras in these dolmens. Honestly, I probably haven't experienced anything like it anywhere else. Not even in a temple was it as palpable as in a dolmen. Therefore, I would use them specifically for transformation into a light body through mantra, practices. Because the space, the atmosphere inside that dolmen really sets the mood for it. But again, I don't know for sure why people created them. And most of the dolmens I came across were no longer functional. That is, they were not in their original locations and were assembled from parts that didn't belong to them.
Here's another question from the same person. Hot healing springs, water-based, natural. Why do they cure many people of illnesses? I was there but haven't practiced yet. I felt that the energy there intensifies. Is that so? Why do they cure illness?
Yes, hot springs are outlets of energy flows. And these energy flows can have a healing effect. But what is it? It's a place of power again, meaning you come to a place of power and it practices for you. It increases your conductivity level. It enhances the intensity of your energies. But you leave this place, and if you continue to behave as before, all of it returns back quite quickly. The other thing is that by practicing in a place of power, you see more, you feel more, and your memory of these events is richer. That is, you know what to strive for. You know what it looks like, even without the ability to reach this state in other places. That is, you are no longer moving blindly, but you are moving into quite specific processes. That's why places of power are used.
So I see there are more comments here, exactly on the topic we were talking about, regarding clothing. Here it says, in general, you can't sell your clothes? Is this still the same as what you said earlier?
You understand, if you sell this clothing to another person who will potentially just wear it and live their life, well, let's be honest, it will most likely be more or less the same.
Uh-huh.
I mean specifically when your clothing ends up in a drastically worse situation than your life. That is, it could be homeless people, seriously ill individuals. God forbid, it ends up on the front line and gets shot at. You will feel all of this as if it's happening to you, but you won't feel it directly. Obviously, your energy will feel it and your psyche will react to it. Your psyche will feel bad. Your physical state will feel bad. So why do you need this?
Just like that, there are also many questions about this.
Yes, that is.
Within framework,
If you want to help with things that don't belong to you as such. For example, money doesn't belong to us. I think it's even written on the money.
within the family, can clothes be passed from mother to daughter or from older children?
Yes, the family is a unified field. There you don't need to.
So nothing bad will happen there. And can you take your consciousness out of an object?
Yes, you can, but it needs to be done with a special practice. And you can cleanse clothes, that is, perform a ritual action, and clear your energy from the clothes. They will then be just empty, like a wrapper. And then do whatever you want with it. Give it to anyone. But this needs to be done. If a person just takes it off and mindlessly gives it away, that's a problem.
Another question. If a craftsman makes a handmade item, does the object retain their energy?
It definitely retains it. All handmade items carry the vibration charge of the craftsman, and the craftsman feels the consequences of what happens with their items. Therefore, those who understand all this do not make things to order for just anyone. They will first take a good look at you and then decide whether they will do it for you or not.
I have asked many times in other broadcasts about hair loss on the head. What is this process from an energetic point of view? And what are Anton's results in terms of hair growth? Regeneration. Is it possible to grow new hair if it has already fallen out?
Well, it is definitely tied to passions, to unbalanced passions. It's a mechanism that shows that balance is still far off, and the physical aspect is already starting to deteriorate. From my side, I started losing hair before I figured out how this energetic process works, so some part was already lost. At the moment, I am maintaining balance. I am restructuring my behavior specifically in certain areas of these passions. What are these passions? These are passions related to the physical body, to pleasures and enjoyments at the physical level. This includes sex, caresses, tenderness, physical tactile tenderness, and attachment to tactile pleasures. If this attachment, well, if it is hypertrophied, if losing such access to such an influence, you experience anxiety, get nervous, twitch, meaning you are overcome by spasms, meaning you cannot react normally like, well, let's say, well, today there won't be any, tomorrow there won't be any, the day after tomorrow you won't have anything. You're like, well, okay, it won't happen, and that's that. But if you start twitching, freaking out about it, it means you're dependent on it. It means that somehow reality will try to pull you away from it, detach you, and while it's detaching you, well, some of your hair falls out. There you go. This doesn't only apply to hair, there are other effects. For example, skin diseases also imply that you are pathologically dependent on tactile pleasures. There you go. What about me? You see my schedule, you see my activities. Even now, I'm working, yes, potentially turning on the camera, and you can see how it all happens in real time, not as a finished video edited with montage and all that. But as it happens, that's what I'm doing. So I'm not sitting and growing my hair back. I simply don't do that. I don't have the time and I don't have the desire to do it. But by leading such a lifestyle sooner or later, by fully establishing this balance, there is a chance that everything will recover. There is such a possibility. I don't do it on purpose. That's it. If we are talking about doing it intentionally, about investing in it, technically it is possible, but you would have to focus solely on that. For me, it's an unaffordable luxury to focus solely on one thing, one part of myself, especially at the physical level. No, I am forming multiple processes, multifaceted processes, and I cannot afford to strictly, bluntly focus on the regeneration of my physical body right now. But it is possible, yes. And here you need to consider there is a condition when hair falls out, but what do they call it? The hair follicles are still there. There is a condition when the hair follicles are already absent. They have dissolved. If they have dissolved, the whole recovery process is very long, very long. However, if they remain, some stimulants, vitamins, massages, or even just rubbing pepper into the scalp to stimulate the circulatory system can already lead to good results. Do you want to unlock your inner strength and learn to manage energy? The course, Power of Consciousness 1. Practical Energy will provide you with tools to improve health, develop intuition, and gain a deeper understanding of the world. Join and start changing your life right now. Link in the description.